My best friend asked me to be her surrogate, then her husband made a demand that changed everything. I never thought I'd find myself standing in a fertility clinic waiting room, clutching a consent form that made my stomach turn. 8 months ago, when my best friend since 3rd grade, Rachel, asked me to be her surrogate, I said yes without hesitation. She and her husband, David, had been trying for years. Multiple miscarriages, failed rounds of IVF, and thousands of dollars spent on treatments that never took. I watched Rachel's light dim with each negative pregnancy test, and when she finally broke down in my kitchen, I promised her I would help. I wanted to give her the one thing she couldn't have on her own. But now, sitting in this sterile room with its faint antiseptic smell and buzzing fluorescent lights, I'm realizing that what I thought was a beautiful gift of friendship might actually be something far darker. And David's final demand before I signed the papers made everything click into place. My name is Lauren, and for 34 years, I've prided myself on being a good friend. I'm the one who shows up with soup when you're sick, who stays on the phone for 3 hours when your boyfriend breaks your heart, who helps you move apartments even when it's 90 degrees outside and your new place is on the 4th floor. I've always believed that friendship means showing up, even when it's inconvenient, even when you'd rather be doing anything else. Rachel and I met in Mrs. Patterson's 3rd grade classroom when she spilled grape juice all over my new white sweater. I was devastated, ready to cry, and she immediately took off her own cardigan and handed it to me with this earnest expression. "Trade you," she said. "Mine has puppies on it, but it's clean." We were inseparable after that. Sleepovers every weekend, matching friendship bracelets that we promised to wear until they fell apart, secrets whispered in tree houses and tent forts. We survived middle school bullies together, navigated the horrors of high school dating, and cried together when we got accepted to different colleges. Our friendship never wavered, not through long-distance phone calls or the chaos of our 20s or my messy divorce from a man who turned out to be fundamentally different from the person I thought I married. Rachel was there for all of it, holding my hand in the courthouse parking lot, helping me pack up my belongings when I left my husband, letting me crash on her couch for 3 months while I got back on my feet. When Rachel met David, I was genuinely happy for her. He seemed kind, stable, successful in his career as an architect. They got married in a beautiful garden ceremony, and I was her maid of honor. I watched them build their life together, and when they bought a house with a white picket fence and a backyard perfect for children, I assumed that would be the natural next step, but the universe had other plans. Rachel had her first miscarriage at 10 weeks. I remember getting the call, her voice so small and broken that I didn't recognize it at first. I drove straight to her house and found her curled up on the bathroom floor, the shower running, her face swollen from crying. David was in the living room, pacing, his phone pressed to his ear as he canceled appointments and rescheduled meetings. I knelt beside Rachel and held her for hours. The second miscarriage happened 6 months later, then the third. Each one chipped away at something inside Rachel, something fundamental to who she was. She'd always wanted to be a mother. It was the thing she talked about most, how she'd decorate a nursery, how she'd teach her children to bake, how she'd read to them every night before bed. Watching her dreams slip through her fingers was agonizing. They tried IVF, 3 rounds, each one more expensive and more invasive than the last. Rachel's body became a battlefield of hormones and injections. She gained weight, lost sleep, developed dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. The first round failed. The second failed. The third resulted in a pregnancy that ended at 12 weeks. I held Rachel's hand in the recovery room, both of us silent. The only sound the steady beep of the heart monitor and the distant hum of hospital activity. I don't remember exactly when the idea was first suggested. Maybe it was Rachel herself, or maybe David, or maybe some well-meaning doctor. But the option of surrogacy eventually came up, and the possibility of me being the surrogate emerged organically, like the only logical conclusion. We had brunch at our favorite cafe, the one with the mismatched chairs and the perfect avocado toast. Rachel was nervous, fidgeting with her silverware, taking tiny bites of her food without really eating. I could see her working up to something, and I knew her well enough to wait. "I need to ask you something," she finally said, "and I need you to say no if it's too much. Please, Lauren. I don't want to lose you over this." "I can't promise to say no," I told her. "That's not how this works. Just ask," she asked. Her voice broke 3 times before she got the words out, the sound of a woman at the end of her rope. She asked if I would carry a child for her. She asked if I would give her the one thing she couldn't make on her own. I didn't hesitate. I reached across the table and took both of her hands in mine. "Yes," I said. "Yes, of course." Her face crumpled with relief, and we both cried right there in the middle of the restaurant. People stared, but we didn't care. It was a beautiful moment. A sacred promise between two people who had loved each other for over 2 decades. I felt honored to be asked, blessed to have the ability to give her this gift. David was thrilled, though his reaction was more reserved. That didn't surprise me. He's always been quieter than Rachel, more measured in his emotions. He thanked me with genuine warmth, told me I was a true friend, hugged me in a way that felt sincere, if slightly stiff. And then the legal conversations began. There were contracts to review, medical evaluations to complete, psychological screenings to undergo. The process was invasive, clinical, and strangely detached. It transformed something deeply personal into something transactional. I understood that it was necessary, of course. These were protections, boundaries, clarity, but it didn't feel like the beautiful gift I'd imagined in that cafe. David was the one who brought up most of the legal points. He'd gotten very interested in the process, reading documents carefully, asking pointed questions, making notes in a small leather notebook he kept in his briefcase. At first, I found it reassuring. Someone was paying attention. Someone was making sure everything was done correctly. But as we moved further along, I started to notice things that bothered me. He became fixated on the custody language, the parts that specified my lack of parental rights. He wanted them expanded, elaborated on, reworded for extra emphasis. He wanted the contract to specify that I wouldn't have any access to the child after birth, not even as a family friend. We just want to keep things clean, he explained over coffee at my apartment. Simple, no ambiguity. This is our child, Lauren. Your body is just the vessel. The phrase just the vessel hung in the air between us, sharp and uncomfortable. I felt something in my chest tighten, some small alarm bell beginning to ring. Rachel cut in quickly, smoothing things over. He doesn't mean it like that. He's just nervous. We both are. We just want everything to be clear. I looked at my best friend's face, so anxious and hopeful. I wanted to give her everything she wanted. I wanted to be the person she needed me to be. But David's words were still echoing in my head, just the vessel. That was when the documents arrived for my signature, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. A clause about medical decisions during pregnancy. A clause that gave David full authority. A clause that didn't mention Rachel at all. I stared at the paper, my hand shaking, and at that moment, I realized that maybe I was being more than just a vessel. Maybe I was being used. The document sat on my kitchen table for 3 days. I'd made coffee, folded laundry, answered emails, done everything I could to avoid looking at it, but it was always there, those crisp white pages with their dense legal language, waiting for me to make a decision I never thought I'd have to make. I'd read the clause at least 20 times. The words blurred together after a while, but the meaning remained perfectly clear. David had inserted a provision giving him sole authority over any medical decisions made during my pregnancy. Not Rachel, him. He could decide which procedures I underwent, which medications I received, and if necessary, he could override my own wishes about my body. The more I thought about it, the more wrong it felt. I wasn't some incubator they'd purchased. I was Lauren. I was Rachel's best friend. I was a person with my own thoughts, my own fears, my own boundaries, and somewhere along the way, those boundaries had been pushed so far that I'd almost forgotten they existed. I called Rachel on the 4th morning. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright with anticipation. Did you sign? Are we doing this? Can you come over? I asked. I need to talk to you about something. The silence on her end stretched for several heartbeats. Is everything okay? Are you backing out? Just come over, Rach. Please. She arrived within the hour, still in her yoga pants, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked exhausted. The kind of bone-deep tiredness that comes from years of heartbreak and hope and disappointment. I felt a pang of guilt for adding to her stress, but I couldn't ignore what I'd found. I slid the document across the table toward her. Read this section. The one about medical decisions. She picked it up, her brow furrowing as she scanned the text. I watched her face change. Confusion shifting to concern, then to something I couldn't quite identify. This doesn't look right, she said slowly. David and I talked about this. We agreed decisions would be shared, both of us consulting with you. I didn't agree to this, I said. I'm not comfortable with anyone having that kind of control over my body. Not even you, Rachel. This is my health, my safety. I know that. She set the paper down and reached for my hand. I'll talk to him. This must be a mistake. He probably had the lawyer draft it and didn't review it carefully enough. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe this was an oversight, a simple error in communication, but something in my gut told me otherwise. David was meticulous. He didn't make mistakes, especially not about legal documents. He'd been reading every line of these contracts for weeks, making notes, asking questions. There was no way he'd missed something this significant. Just talk to him, I said finally. We need to fix this before I sign anything. I want to do this for you, Rach. I want to give you this baby. But I can't do it if I feel like my body isn't my own anymore. She promised she'd handle it. She hugged me tightly, told me she loved me, and left with the document tucked under her arm. I watched her drive away, and I tried to convince myself that everything was going to be fine. 2 days later, I got a text from David. Not Rachel, David. Can we meet? Just the two of us. There are some things I'd like to clarify before you make a decision. I hesitated. Something about the message felt off. Why wasn't Rachel coming? Why did he want to meet alone? I suggested a public place, a coffee shop near my apartment. I didn't want to be alone with him in his house or mine. I don't know why exactly. I couldn't articulate the unease I felt, just that it was there, a low hum of warning beneath my skin. We met on a Tuesday afternoon. The coffee shop was busy, filled with the murmur of conversation and the hiss of the espresso machine. David was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a laptop open in front of him. He looked up as I approached, and his smile was warm. Too warm. The kind of smile that felt practiced. "Thanks for coming," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "I know this whole process has been stressful. I appreciate your patience. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page," I said carefully. "The clause about medical decisions, that needs to change." David's smile didn't waver. "I was hoping we could discuss that. Look, I understand your concerns. I really do. But you have to see this from my perspective too. Rachel has been through so much. If something goes wrong during the pregnancy, she won't be able to handle it. She'll be a wreck. I'm just trying to protect her. I'm trying to make sure someone level-headed is in charge. Someone level-headed like you," I said flatly. "Someone who can make hard decisions without falling apart." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "That's not an insult, Lauren. It's just the reality of the situation. Rachel is emotional. She's fragile. If there are complications, she'll panic. I'm not saying I'd make decisions that you wouldn't agree with. I'm just saying I'd make them calmly, rationally. For everyone's benefit," I stared at him, my heart pounding. "What kind of decisions are you talking about? What exactly are you afraid might happen?" He shrugged, a casual gesture that didn't match the intensity in his eyes. "Anything, everything. You could develop complications. The baby could be at risk. There could be a situation where we need to choose between your health and the baby's. I just want to make sure that if that happens, the right choice is made." "And what would the right choice be, David? In your opinion?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me with that practiced smile. And suddenly I understood. He'd already decided. He'd already planned for the worst-case scenario, and in his mind, there was only one correct outcome. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "I'm not signing anything until this changes." "Not a single page." David's expression shifted just barely, a flicker of something cold in his eyes before the warmth returned. "I think you should take some time to really think about this, Lauren. Rachel's happiness depends on this. Our whole future depends on it. Are you really going to let a little legal language stand in the way of that?" A little legal language, that's what he called it. A clause that would give him control over my body, my choices, my life. "I'll take that time," I said. "But I'm not changing my mind." I walked out of the coffee shop with my hands trembling and my mind racing. I called Rachel immediately, but she didn't pick up. I left a voicemail, my voice shaking. "We need to talk. Please call me back." She didn't call back. Not that night. Not the next morning. And when I finally went to her house, her car was in the driveway, but she wouldn't answer the door. I stood on her front porch, staring at the dark windows, and I realized that David had gotten to her first. I spent the next week in a fog of confusion and hurt. I called Rachel at least a dozen times. Each call went straight to voicemail. I sent texts, long ones at first, explaining my side, asking her to talk to me, then shorter ones just begging for a response. Nothing. She'd read them. I could see the little blue check marks, but she never replied. It was like watching a door close in slow motion, knowing that once it's shut, it might never open again. I went to her house again on Saturday morning. This time, David answered. He stood in the doorway, blocking my view of the interior, his expression carefully neutral. "She doesn't want to see you right now," he said. "She needs some space to process everything. I need to talk to her. This is between me and Rachel. It's always been between me and Rachel. Rachel is my wife," he said, his voice hardening. "What affects her affects me, and right now you're hurting her. You're making her choose between you and the family she's been trying to build for years. Don't you see how selfish that is?" Something snapped inside me. The word selfish echoed in my ears, and I felt a wave of anger so intense it nearly knocked me off balance. Selfish. I'd offered my body, my time, my health, my emotional stability. I'd said yes without hesitation. I'd been willing to go through 9 months of pregnancy, with all the risks and discomfort and permanent changes that came with it. All for her. And I was the selfish one. "Where is she?" I demanded. "David, I'm not leaving until I see her." He stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind him. The gesture was deliberate, a clear signal that I wasn't welcome inside. "She needs to focus on her own well-being right now. Your constant attempts to contact her are making things worse. If you really care about her, you'll back off." "I do care about her. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm fighting for our friendship." "What happened to you, David? When did you become this person?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for me to leave. I realized then that that there was no point in arguing. He'd already made up his mind about me. He'd painted me as the villain in his narrative, the obstacle standing between him and the family he wanted. Nothing I said would change that. I walked back to my car with tears streaming down my face. I'd lost my best friend, and I still didn't fully understand how it had happened, but I wasn't done fighting. Not yet. The next morning, I drove to the fertility clinic. I'd scheduled a consultation weeks ago, one of the final steps before the transfer process. The receptionist greeted me by name, and I asked to speak to the clinic director. It was a long conversation. I explained the situation, the clause David had inserted, the pressure I was under, Rachel's sudden silence. The director, a woman named Dr. Patterson, listened with a professional calm that I found oddly comforting. "We take these matters very seriously," she said. "The surrogate's autonomy is paramount in all our procedures. If you're not comfortable with the terms of the contract, you have every right to withdraw. We can also facilitate mediation if you'd like to try and resolve the issues with the intended parents." I thought about that. Mediation. Sitting across from Rachel, across from David with a neutral third party. Maybe that would force them to listen. Maybe Rachel would finally explain why she'd shut me out. But then I thought about David's cold eyes, his practiced smile, the way he'd twisted everything to make me seem like the unreasonable one. I thought about Rachel's silence and all the years we'd shared and how easily she'd let them be erased. "I need to withdraw," I said. "I'm sorry. I know this complicates things for everyone, but I can't do it. Not like this." Dr. Patterson nodded. "I understand. We'll process the paperwork immediately. I'll also send a formal notification to the intended parents, so there's no confusion about your decision." I left the clinic feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. I'd made the right choice, I knew that, but I'd also closed a door that I'd never be able to open again. Rachel finally called me 3 days later. Her voice was flat, emotionless, like she was reading from a script. "You withdrew, without even telling me, Rach? I tried to tell you. You wouldn't answer my calls. You wouldn't open your door. I needed time, Lauren. I was trying to process everything. And then I find out from the clinic that you've just made this huge decision without me. Do you have any idea how that feels?" "I do," I said, my voice cracking. "I know exactly how it feels to have someone make decisions for you without your input. That's what David was trying to do to me. That clause in the contract. I know about the clause." David explained everything. "He was just trying to protect me. He wanted to make sure that if anything happened, I wouldn't have to make impossible choices alone. He wanted to control me, Rachel. There's a difference. And he wasn't trying to protect you. He was trying to protect himself. He was trying to create a situation where he had all the power. He's my husband," she said, and there was a tremor in her voice now, a crack in the careful composure. "I have to trust him. I have to believe he has our best interests at heart." "Does he? Really? Because I've been thinking about this for the past week, and I've realized something. That clause wasn't just about medical decisions. It was about ownership. It was about treating me like a tool instead of a person. And if he's willing to do that to me, what happens when you disagree with him? What happens when you want something different than what he wants?" The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear Rachel breathing, shallow and uneven, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. "I can't talk about this right now," she finally whispered. "I just can't." "Okay," I said softly, "but I'm here when you're ready. I'll always be here, Rach. No matter what." She hung up without saying goodbye. It's been 2 months now. Rachel and I haven't spoken since that phone call. I see her posts on social media sometimes, carefully curated images of her and David, their house, their garden, their life. She looks happy. She looks like she's moved on. I wonder sometimes if she's found another surrogate, if she's found someone else willing to carry their child. I hope she has. I hope she gets everything she deserves, but I also hope she's okay. I hope David is treating her well, that he's not using the same manipulation tactics on her that he used on me. I worry about her more than I probably should, and I think about that document sometimes, the one I never signed, the one that would have changed everything. I think about how close I came to giving away my autonomy, my voice, my safety, how close I came to losing myself in the name of friendship. I don't regret saying yes. I don't regret offering to help, but I do regret that it took almost losing everything to realize that no friendship, no matter how deep, should ever cost you your sense of self. Rachel and I might never be the same. That's a loss I'll carry with me for the rest of my life, but I also carry the knowledge that I stood up for myself. I protected my boundaries. I said no when saying yes would have been the easier choice, and maybe that's the most important thing I've ever done.